The Book Report, The Three Investigators. Hello and welcome to this week's video. I've been wanting to do something like this for a while and I'm like, why not? I'll do it this week. I have done book reviews on this channel before, of course, though primarily the Doctor Who ones, both the original fiction that was published by Virgin and then the BBC in the 90s and the early 2000s, and I've looked at the Target books as well. Well, this time I want to branch out a little from Doctor Who and go into a different kind of book series. This is The Three Investigators. Now, this was one of the mainstays of my childhood, at least for a while. I'd say for about 5 years, which is a long time when you were when you were a kid. The Three Investigators was basically an American kind of mystery thriller detective series for kids. It was created by a writer called Robert Arthur Jr. and it originally went out under the moniker not so much of just the Three Investigators, but certainly the ones I've got, Alfred Hitchcock and the Three Investigators. Basically, it's these three kids, more or less in their early teens, though it doesn't really specify how old they are, who they live in California. They're very clever and they've set up this sort of detective agency of their own. At the Alfred Hitchcock part, it's set in California. It's set in California during. It's never specifically set. It's never specifically said what time period it is, but it's set in California sometime in the 60s to the 80s. And Alfred Hitchcock, of course, lived in there. He was a famous Hollywood director, and he kind of tangentially get involved in the very first book in the series, which was The Mystery of Terror Castle. And thereafter he sort of becomes like an unofficial mentor that they occasionally go to for advice and assistance. He doesn't really get involved with the stories, but he's sort of like an adult mentor figure, which is a clever gimmick, and certainly one that appealed to me as a kid. The series apparently ran for 23 years in its original run, from 1964 to 1987, and there were 43 books. I only have 37 of them. Now, I would have started reading these. I'm certainly looking at when they were published in the UK, or at least these editions were published in the UK, the ones that I have, about 1982, which seems about right. I would have been 7, so that seems about right for when I was a very precocious reader. My mum used to tell the story about how Rotherham Public Library basically had to create like a special thing for me to let me join, because I was like 4 or 5, and they didn't usually let kids that age join and rent out books on their own. And that really upset me, because I was reading voraciously even at that age, so they had to make a special exception for me. I was very precocious. Haven't changed much either. So, and I kind of got the first 37. I think I sort of drifted away about 1986. The last one I've got is number 37, and that's published 1986. And at the time, certainly the last few I was buying, or getting someone else to buy for me, more likely, as soon as they were published. As soon as they came on the shelves, it was one of the things I followed. I also followed the Hardy Boys books. I may talk about them at another time. Not Nancy Drew. That was for girls. Well, honestly, I think I kind of preferred the Three Investigators. I guess because most of them were. There was a very kind of pseudo supernatural thing to them. It was very kind of Jonathan Creek. There was always a rational explanation. There was never any actual supernatural shenanigans, but there was some very lurid gothic stories. There were sinister scarecrows and Egyptian mummies and apparently ghosts and all that. None of it was real, of course. It was all Scooby-Doo. There were other things going on, but that just kind of appealed to me as a kid. I like that sort of thing. I still like that sort of thing, which tells you how much I've matured over the age. Unfortunately, I haven't got. I sometimes think maybe I should get. Apparently, it only ran for 43 books, and I've got like 37. Maybe I should like try and find the last 6 or something, so I have a complete collection. I don't know. Maybe not. I haven't read any of the bloody things for a very long time. They have since been kind of occasionally republished and changed and all the rest of it. I think there's been a couple of adaptations, and no doubt they're running around with mobile phones or something. Yeah, no doubt. I don't think so. Basically, the 3 characters, and I can remember these without even looking, were Jupiter Jones, Pete Crenshaw, and Bob Andrews. Jupiter Jones was like the ringleader of it. He was the one who was pushing for them to be detectives, and he was kind of overweight, but he was very, very smart. It was just their kind of their HQ, which was like this secret. Jupiter lived with his aunt and uncle, I believe, who ran this junkyard, and there was this secret little mobile home in the junkyard, which had been so surrounded by so much crap that his aunt and uncle had forgotten it was even there, and he devised like a secret way of getting into it that only he and his mates knew. It was all very appealing to me as a kid. It was even an influence on some of the stuff I've written in my time. I guess some of my favorites would probably, and again I haven't read any of them for a long time, but I'm going from memory, would be the first one, which was the Secret of Terror Castle, which was a very gothic, very ghost story, of course. There's The Invisible Dog, which is it's sort of a ghost story, but it's also sort of like a whodunit murder mystery. I don't think anybody actually gets killed. It's set in like this apartment complex. I don't think anyone actually gets killed, but several people get nobbled and have very unpleasant things happening to them, apparently by a ghost. And I mean, look at that, the sinister scarecrow. How could any kid not be interested in a book with a cover like that? I mean, come on. That is pure class. I guess I began to wane slightly about late 85, 86. One of the things that made me kind of wane a little bit, partly I think that the later covers from about 30th onwards weren't as good as some of the original ones. They weren't quite as lurid and that. But I think one of the things that kind of put me off was that the Alfred Hitchcock thing, because he died in real life, and he died in the books, and that kind of, I don't know, I was kind of disappointed by that. I guess it shows you what a precocious little bastard I was. Even at that age, I didn't like change, and I still don't. It made it a little bit less appealing. There was something kind of appealing about the fact that there was somebody, there was like a real person that the kids knew and went to for advice, and that they kind of created another character. They had some writer guy replace him as their new sort of mentor, but it was just a fictional character, so it's like, who cares? Who the fuck is this guy? It just kind of put me off. Even as a kid, I was like, okay, so he's died in real life. Does he have to die in the books? I mean, I guess I understand the reasoning for it, but it still made it a bit less appealing to me. The last one I bought, which was number 37, it says 1986 in it, and that makes complete sense, because let's face it, what happened Christmas 1986? As anyone who's watched this channel regularly will know, I became a Doctor Who fan. So the 3 investigators, and I guess the Hardy Boys and all that sort of stuff. And I was reaching that age anyway. I think the thing says the target audience was like 7 to 12-year-olds, and I was getting to that age anyway. So it just kind of went away. Now, I have to be honest, when we moved to Australia in the early 90s, I gave away the Hardy Boys books. I think I had even more. I think I had like I don't know, 60 or so of them. I gave them away. I never read any of them, and there were just too bloody many. I still have the 3 Investigator books. I've never gotten rid of them. Sometimes they've been in boxes, depending on how small the house I was in. But at the moment, they are sitting loud and proud on my bookcase. In fact, I might show you this sometime. I'm redecorating and rearranging. I've got some books, including some Doctor Who books and some 3 Investigators, kind of facing outwards so that you can see the artwork. It's very, very appealing. I may show you it sometime. But yeah, I loved the 3 Investigator books. I was a big fan, even more so than like I said, I read the Hardy Boys books, but I always preferred the 3 Investigator books, which is probably why when we came to Australia, I kept hold of them, even though I gave away the Hardy Boys ones. Anyway, I really dug the 3 Investigators books. Maybe I should read them again. Maybe I'm a little old for them, but I don't know. I am getting even more immature as I get older. I do find that. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video. I'm sorry it's not about Doctor Who. I just thought I'd do a video on this because it's something, you know, it's one of those things from my childhood that was a big part of my childhood, you know, pre-Doctor Who. It was one of my things. I would always get the 3 Investigator books. I really enjoyed the 3 Investigators. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video. Depending on the response, I may do other book stuff. Maybe I'll look at the Hardy Boys. Maybe I'll look at some other book stuff, depending on whether anybody's interested or not. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video, and I will talk to you again soon.